Thank you, everyone. I'm glad everyone's here. I will say it because it's public record. I left Campaign for Liberty, took a leave of absence to serve as Ron Paul's campaign manager on his presidential campaign. And I'm just here tonight to introduce our next speaker. I was given the honor of introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker first called Ron Paul a few years ago to talk to him about the Fed. He had an interest in it, he was concerned about it, and he had seen Ron's work on the Fed. And he gave Ron a call, and it turned into a friendship that's been going on for a couple years. Ron gave him a lot of information, a lot of sources, a lot of books to read, and he became pretty outspoken, including some pretty good quotes on his opposition to the Fed, excuse me, whatever it's called. So I'm proud to introduce our next speaker tonight. He's a renowned actor. He asked me not to give all his movies, but a few of them you may have heard of: Wedding Crashers, Old School, Couples Retreat, and my personal favorite, Dodgeball. He and his wife Kyla have one daughter, Lachlan. They live in Illinois. He's a strong supporter of Campaign for Liberty and a strong supporter of Ron Paul and a friend to us all. Please join me in welcoming Vince Vaughn.
I have said some things about the Fed, but I've also don't like a guy known as Fred, too. There's a Fred that I'm not comfortable with, so he's not entirely wrong in making that statement. It's great to be here at the very first one of these, I believe, the Liberty Political Action Conference, so thank you for including me. It's nice to be here with you guys today. It is nice to inform you that the Campaign for Liberty has over 500,000 members, and it is growing strong. And the Campaign for Liberty has been tremendous in calling for an audit on the Fed, which is great, and that is how I first made the acquaintance. I called Dr. Paul, and I think he was a little surprised to think that I was calling him, but I was just impressed with his talking points on that subject and his willingness to get out there and really keep beating that drum, so I thank him for that. Dr. Paul was born in Pennsylvania. He married his high school sweetheart, Carol. They have 5 kids and 18 grandkids, so he had some other interests other than politics along the way. He has delivered over 4,000 babies as an OBGYN, written a lot of books. And you know, people get into politics for many reasons, but primarily for self-promotion. Dr. Paul has been involved in politics because he has something very important and meaningful to say, and he has devoted himself to spreading that message, which is very rare. His philosophies are consistent. They do not waver based on political polls or public opinion. His principles are based in fact and logic, which is rooted in the very foundation of America. We're all very lucky to have a voice like his out there, and we need to have more out there that are like his. It is my great honor tonight to present to you Dr. Ron Paul.
And a very big thanks to Vince for coming and being part of us and part of the Liberty movement. I'm so delighted he's here tonight. I also want to thank John Tate and Jesse Benton, who's worked hard on the Campaign for Liberty as well as the presidential campaign, and they are very instrumental in what we're doing. I want to thank them for all their hard work. Of course, it's great to come and visit with you because I get a lot of energy from you because you're energetic and you know what's the problem and you've been willing to help and you've been very engaged. So this to me is a delight because all I have to do is compare it to giving a speech on the House floor and you're much more receptive. But I think the whole country's becoming more receptive to our views. I don't think you would notice that by the evening news or some of the polling that is done, but I sense that our numbers are growing rapidly. There's something definitely different than it has been before. I was very much impressed 4 years ago when we were involved in the campaign that the numbers of people who were interested and concerned and wanting to get involved, it was much greater than I ever dreamed. But I'll tell you what, it's much bigger now than I ever thought either, even 4 years ago. But we do face some major problems, and that is what we're engaged in. The Campaign for Liberty, of course, to me is very important because it has carried the fight in between campaigns. The thought that I had after the last campaign ended and we had our campaign up in Minnesota, and our convention there was that most likely things would calm down a bit and I could go back to being rather anonymous, and but there was a lot of momentum behind that, and our numbers kept growing. And when we put together the Campaign for Liberty, I was rather impressed on the number of people who joined and how it's continued to grow. So that's very, very encouraging because I think if you don't have the grassroots effort, if you don't have the enthusiasm coming from the people, the politicians aren't going to respond. And unfortunately for us, in one way, but fortunately in another way, most of the people in Washington don't go there with firm beliefs. Did you ever think about that? They don't have firm convictions, but they do like the prime lights, and they like their jobs, and they want their jobs. And for the most part, if they think they're going to lose their job because there's a stirring among the grassroots in their district, they will come our way. And I think that's what's happening. I think part of our movement, along with the Tea Party movement, a message is becoming loud and clear, and the politicians are noticing it, and they're starting to come our way. The problem is that we're facing such a crisis that even when they come around and think, oh, maybe we ought to do something about it, it's not going to be easy because this crisis has been building for a long time. And in modern years, I say that the financial troubles started 40 years ago, and we're nearing a climactic end to this. And every single day we hear more news about it, and even yesterday and today we continue to hear about the crisis in Europe. And as bad as it is over there with the debt of the various nations and the particular problem in Greece, it looks like right now they think, well, all we have to do is send the dollars over there from the United States government is going to solve all the problem. But let me tell you, the markets may be pacified for a day or two, but that will not be the solution. The solution is going to come from our success in promoting the cause of hard money and personal liberty. That's where the solution is going to come. You know, the atmosphere has changed in Washington. The Tea Party movement certainly sent some new people there. The House has changed a bit. We still have ways. And understand there's a new senator from Kentucky and Washington. That's very helpful too. So, and he has a lot of energy. So I'm expecting him to do a whole lot. But it is wonderful. We're very proud of Rand, and I'm so pleased that he was able to come and visit with you today, and we appreciate that very much. But the big question is what are we going to do, and when are we going to do it, and how are we going to accomplish this? And the one thing that we're particularly engaged in, I'm always engaged in education. I think that is important, changing people's mind. Right now we're engaged in a very important political event called the Campaign for the Presidency, and I think it's going rather well right now. And I've used a quote from Sam Adams quite often. I think it's absolutely true. You know, we don't have to have the majority. We need leadership. We need people influencing the majority. But what we need is a minority, an irate minority, a tireless minority, willing to start brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And I think that's what we have been accomplishing. Basic question I think we all have to ask, and that's what we persistently do, and then come up with the right answer. What should the role of government be? And we've had government for as long as we've had recorded history, and basically government has been abuse of power and abuse of the liberties of the individuals. And yet the founders made a stab at it. They didn't like the abuse of the king, and there was a revolution, and we ended up with a rather good document. And this was a major step. Unfortunately, the protections built into the Constitution were ignored, but the ignoring of this is not a consequence of the lack of understanding what it should be. It's the lack of the character of the people over the last 200 years who should have been protecting our liberties rather than diluting those liberties. So our goal obviously right now is to restate those principles that have been sound, have given us the maximum amount of freedom and the maximum amount of prosperity of any nation. So there's every reason in the world for us to say that we don't have a catastrophic event because we at least had a hint of what we were supposed to be doing. And I don't like to use the words that we have to go back to doing this, go back to the way it was 200 years ago, back to the gold standard. What we want to do is refine it and march forward and have a better standard than we've ever had before, because there's a greater need than ever before. So that is what I'm optimistic that we can achieve. But in order to decide what the role of government ought to be, we have to decide, what we're trying to do. And to me, it's protecting rights. I think the purpose of all political action, and hopefully our educational activity, that is to promote the cause of liberty. And to do that, you have to understand what it is. And to me, it's pretty simple. I believe that we have a natural or God-given right to our life. And it's your life, and it's your life to do good things or your life to waste, but you have to be responsible for it. But at the same time, if it's your life, it's your liberty, and you should have the incentive under those conditions to be more productive than if you live in a socialist dictatorship. So under those circumstances, we have a natural right to our life, we have a natural right to our liberty, we have the conditions to make us more energetic and produce more, and we ought to have a right to keep everything we earn. We have an entitlement to that ownership. Our problem has been, though, for more than 50 years, probably especially since the Depression, the definition of rights have been distorted. Entitlements have become rights. So if they said that people are entitled, they might fall through the cracks. We have to take care of them. The government has this obligation. So they're entitled, and therefore they have a right to a job and a right to a house and a right to medical care, a right to education. And these aren't rights. These are not rights. The only way governments can deliver those rights is to destroy and take those rights from other individuals. There's a bumper sticker on my desk at the office in Washington. I'm sure you may have seen it on the internet, and it's very simple to summarize it. Don't steal. The government hates competition.